Okay, so you've just clicked on a running shoe review. On Running's Cloud Flow 4. Why should you listen to me on this review? Well, let me explain. I'm a self-certified On Running fanboy, so I know all the specs, I know all about On Running shoes. Like for example, the Cloud Boom Echo 3. I'm gonna tell you why the new shoe is similar to this one. Cloud Surfer 7, in my opinion, the best shoe that On Running has made to date. One of the most popular shoes ever, not just from On Running, the Cloud Monster. And of course, one of the later releases, the Stratus 3. All of these amazing shoes, but you've come here specifically for the Cloud Flow 4. So let's talk about it. So despite me saying I'm an On Running fanboy, don't expect me to be all nicey-nicey, talk nice about this stuff just so you can buy it. I'm gonna be very honest. Let's get with the intros. My name is Aubrey, a very average runner, simply trying to be less average by the day, as at the time of filming this, guess what? You've given me 7,050 subscribers, mind blown. My channel is going up and up, and it's simply because of your support. If you want to connect with me on Instagram, please do, right there. That's me. It'll be good to have you. Let's talk anything running shoes, running, as well as the weight loss journey I'm on. Catch me on there, let's chat. Let's talk about the shoe. I'm gonna start with the one thing I don't like about the shoe. I told you, it's not all nicey-nicey. On Running, if you do another iteration of this shoe, change these laces. Now I know it sounds like a very petty thing to be calling out, but out of all the shoes I listed, these are the worst laces I've had on them. Here's why. I took this shoe out on a 7K run, there, and I stopped to tie my laces on my right side 4 times and twice on my left side. Now, depending on what kind of run you're doing, what kind of run? No? Never mind. Depending on what kind of run you're doing, you don't want to be stopping and starting because it impacts the time. Like the workout I was doing had a pace dictated to it. And so the stopping and starting I'm doing because of laces, just we can do without stuff like that. So next run I'm doing, because the rest of the shoe, honestly, you can't ignore how good of a shoe this is. I'm putting different laces on these shoes. What they've done to this shoe, especially in comparison to the previous version, is exactly what we wanted. Firmer ride with some cushioning. I'm gonna say firmer because I'm just gonna be honest. I didn't like the Cloud Flow 3 for running. It was really good for walking and going about my business. But this one, the way they've done the configuration in the midsole makes us talk about it differently. Anyway, let's start the review. 3 things that you need to know. Those 3 things are weight, price, and stack height. In terms of weight, I wear a 9.5 UK, and this bad boy weighed in at 262 grams. So it's not too heavy, but it's not too light neither. Just middle road. In terms of price, 150 pounds, and I want to say $160 in terms of stack height. Now, let me explain this bit first. Normally, shoe reviewers just list these numbers. Not everyone gets those numbers. But when you look at the midsole of a running shoe, you measure the back and you measure the front. The difference between those two is what we call the drop. So this is 31 millimeters at the back and 23 at the front, being an 8 mil drop. That is quite an aggressive drop. If you ask me, going between 8 and 10 is a considerable drop. But what does that mean in terms of this shoe? It's actually a lot more in terms of the cushioning and the comfort I spoke about, because actually, I'll touch on a few things in the midsole, so please stay tuned in when I talk about the midsole and what they've done in this version that wasn't there in the 3. Let's start with the review. I always talk from the top, work my way down, back, going forward. So let's start with the heel. I love this heel. Now, don't get me wrong, I like it when heels are minimalistic for very fast shoes because that helps with reducing weight. I prefer though when there is moderate cushioning, and that's what this is. It's not extremely padded like what you get in a Gel Nimbus 25, for example, but it is there. On the back of the heel, you do have structure. It is quite well and reinforced. That's going to hold your heel in and give you that security that everyone needs on their run. What you don't want to do is go on a run and start fearing whether your ankle's going to roll over and stuff like that. So next up, let's talk about the tongue. Now, I know that some people already know the stuff I'm about to say, but for the benefit of the person that doesn't, this is fully gusseted, meaning that it's actually attached. The tongue is attached in the inside of the shoe. And they do a very good job of doing that, because most shoes that do have that attachment, they've got like a little strip just attaching it on the inside on both sides. This is a full attachment that they've got on the inside here, whilst the tongue is still independent. That's really, really good. It's also highly perforated, and you can see that on the tongue, which kind of gives you that breathability that you need. I like two things. One, the branding on there adds character, but more importantly, there's an extra loop for the laces to go through in the tongue to give you added security. And that's something that you always want to appreciate. Following the padding I talked about in the heel, there's also moderate padding in this tongue. And when you tie down on the laces don't really come crushing down on the top of your foot. So that's really, really well done. Laces. I touched on this. Maybe it's just me. Maybe being nearly 40 years old, I still haven't learned how to do my laces. I don't know. But I didn't like the experiences with these laces. The length of them is great. I'm not complaining there. But the texture of these laces, and trust me, I got so annoyed the second time I tied them down. I really tied them down. And for some reason, they came undone. On running, if you listen to this, please, let's change these laces. Secondly, in terms of the eyelet, this is the Stratus 3. And that is, so you can see that this is more of a basic fundamental lacing system. And I prefer that than highly complex things that don't really need to be that complex. I like this. Okay, so we talked about similarities with the Cloud Boom Echo 3. And one of those is the material used. Now look, I will always call out a feature in a bit more of a basic shoe that features something that's highly priced. This is 260 pounds worth of shoe. The mesh, the upper that you see here, the top part of the shoe is the same material that you're seeing in this shoe. That kind of tells you this is a serious upgrade from the Cloud Flow 3, because trust me, that material wasn't anything like this. So in terms of its lightness, the feel of it, the breathability, absolutely. More importantly though, and I'm sorry I'm going to sound very superficial, the swaggy look on this bad boy, I'm telling you now, when I'm done running in this shoe, this is going to be one of my favorite shoes to just wear anyway because of the look. I'm going to be outright. A lot of the reviews I've watched have kind of had that yellowy, orangey kind of tinge to the shoe. I prefer this. This all white. Not the best timing in terms of the season we're in the UK, where we're going into the end of autumn, start of winter. So maybe not the best, but you know what? This is the cleanest look in terms of an upper, and I love it. Next up is the midsole. Now this is always the star of the show. My favorite midsole though, I'm going to be honest, in terms of on-running shoes, is the Cloud Surfer 7. They call this Cloud Tech Phase because these clouds that you're seeing collapse into each other as you kind of step in. This is just Cloud Tech, the usual cloud structure you're used to seeing in an on-running shoe. However, it feels different. Dual density, meaning you've got two foams at play here. You've got this top layer, which is really, really nice actually. And then you've got the Cloud Tech, that Helion foam that we're used to seeing. For me personally, I want to see most shoes featuring the Cloud Tech Phase because I like cushioning, I like comfort. But the comfort in this shoe has to be spoken about in comparison to the Cloud Flow 3. Now that shoe, I'm just going to be outright, I didn't have time for it. It was good as a walking shoe. I wasn't going to run in that shoe. This, I could definitely do a few workouts in, but also I could go pick up my son on a school run and look like one of the coolest dads that's ever lived. Facts. Another thing, another feature is a nylon plate. In the previous plate, there was a polypropylene plate, right? I'll put it here. I don't really care for the names. All I'm going to tell you is The shape of the plate they've put in here, I'm gonna hold this out. You can see that it has a spoon shape at the front as it goes here, and that contributes to that rocker shape. And that contributes to when you're going, this shoe just wants to go, hey, listen, I got you, and it toes you off really, really well. So the combination of the dual density foam and that spoon shaped nylon speedboard combination just works wonders here. But the one thing I have to say is they've added comfort to the Cloudflow 4. And that is the headline here. Let's talk about the outsole. And I've got another criticism here. This is the outsole of the Cloud Stratus 3. And they will always cover the main parts, key areas of contact, as well as key landing zones in the back. The parts that you see here are the same foam, that midsole, and that's not covered. On Running kind of sees it as actually the main key areas that we need to cover for a resilience so the shoe doesn't wear out are the parts that you're going to see featured with a different color. They've done the same with this shoe. Now for me personally, if I was to give On Running some advice in terms of the outsoles, because to me, these color bits are not just there to preserve this midsole, but they offer grip and they are grippier, we can all agree, than the exposed midsole parts. So by only covering key landing zones, you're doing two things that you could do better. You could offer the runner much more grip, and I understand that it's more materials as well as adding more weight to the shoe. But you know what? For some of the pricing that these shoes will come at, it's highly justified. Offer people a bit more coverage for resilience. So depending on people's running styles, you never know how they land. So preserving that midsole, give us a bit more added coverage. And then secondly, that will give us more grip as runners, and that will never be complained about. The one thing to call out that they've done very well. All right, let me take you to the Monsters outsole. Can you see that in between here, this dugout bit, you would collect all of your neighbors' pebbles, stones, all of your community stones will end up at your house because they ended up in there. What they did for the first time, which I really appreciated in the Cloud Surfer 7, is they brought that trench out a bit more. Therefore, while still preserving that trench for maybe a scientifically explained spread of energy that you need that still, I don't know, they've done that in here too. And that I really appreciate. Now, don't get me wrong. I think you will still get a few stones trapped in there. I didn't at all. But just by the fact that you've got a cavity in there, it's likely to happen. I actually love what they've done because it's a sign that they're listening to their customers and enhancing their products this way. Okay, so where does this fit in a rotation? If this was Nike, you've got Alpha Fly, Vaporfly on one end. You've got the Invincible 3 on the other for cushioning, long run, and this side is your race day. In the middle, you have a Pegasus or you have a Vomero 17, whatever it is. This is the equivalent of that. The way it feels to me, this feels like the Pegasus. The only difference, that speedboard. There's a return of energy here, but what they've done, which in my opinion, let me emphasize, strictly my opinion, makes this a better option to me than the Pegasus 40. One, the look. I prefer this because I can wear this outside of running. Second, the plate. It feels like the same run in terms of the materials to me and my running style and my build, but it just has a bit more comfort. If you compare the Cloudflow 3, the earlier version of this, no brainer. I'm going with the Pegasus every time. But now with these changes that they've done, this is a Pegasus killer, if that makes sense. Tesco test. For those of you new to my reviews, I get to this section and I say, would you wear this shoe doing anything else apart from running? And I have to say, and I don't know if this is a good thing or not, but I will probably wear this more than when I'm not running than I am when I am running. So this to me will probably feature more in my lifestyle kind of look simply because of the look of this stuff. And also, I'm on a bigger side. I therefore would feel more of an enjoyable run in the Stratus 3, in the Monster, in the Cloud Surfer 7, because they offer me much better cushioning than what this does. Just being honest. Hey, so look, if you enjoyed that review, I've got plenty more either on the channel or coming. Please consider subscribing, it will be great. So for the shoes I've talked about, if you want to watch the review of the Cloud Stratus 3, I will leave that here. And then of the Surfer 7, I'm going to leave that here. Thank you very much, and I genuinely hope you will join me on the channel for future videos as well as my previous ones. I'll see you on the next one.